Every industry you could think of, Uber most recently, wants regulation. Why? Well, the more barriers to entry you create, the harder it is for competitors to enter.
Welcome to The Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering this week and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Bedford, and I'm here today with senior columnist Tim Carney. And Tim, you wrote this week about the fact that Sam Altman, the creator of ChatGPT, big AI industry leader, called on Congress to regulate AI. And liberals sort of fawned over that. They were so impressed. But you read about why there's no reason to be impressed with that.
It's in fact the most common story in Washington, that an industry leader wants more federal regulation. And so the company OpenAI doesn't just do ChatGPT. They actually have a whole nother product where virtual robots wrestle each other as a way of trying to train robots, I guess, to fight. Cool. Kind of terrifying, right? I mean, so that's why people talk about regulating it, is because they worry, oh, is this going to start a nuclear war? Members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, not experts, not necessarily the most techie young group in all of America, they said we need some regulation, and so Sam Altman, the CEO, said yes, we do need regulation. And one Democrat, Dick Durbin, said, oh, this is historic. We've never had somebody asked to be regulated. But that's a total lie. I mean, because the toy companies, Mattel and Hasbro in the Obama years were asking to be regulated. Philip Morris was the ones who basically wrote Obama's tobacco regulation. You go ahead, you had Donald Trump falling for this. Oh, well, I didn't think this was a good idea, but instead this one industry asked to be regulated. That's how we got the light bulb law under George W. Bush. Every industry you could think of, Uber most recently, wants regulation. Why? Well, the more barriers to entry you create, the harder it is for competitors to enter the industry, and so the biggest business wants that.
Are there any existing regulations that Congress has put on AI? I mean, are there any sort of guardrails around that industry?
I mean, there's general tech regulations, and a lot of people say that a lot of those will do most of the trick, and that otherwise we should look at specific harms and regulate against them. But instead, what the Judiciary Committee was talking about was sort of making a Food and Drug Administration for AI technology. In other words, you can't sell a prescription drug until it gets approved by the federal government, and this is what Senate Judiciary Committee members, Republican and Democrat, were talking about. You have to ask permission and get permission, we call it mother may I regulating, before you can put an algorithm on the market, before you can do any of that. So there are some regulations that are in place for other things, but of course AI is different, so there will need to be a different regulatory framework. The question is, will it be the sort of thing that does what other regulations do, which is create a massive thing where the companies doing it have to buy a ton of lawyers, you hire the chief of staff who wrote the law as your lobbyist. That's the game that sort of Sam Altman and Republican and Democratic senators are lining up to play, where regulation becomes a barrier to entry. It reduces innovation and it keeps the biggest guys in place.
Are there partisan fault lines here? I mean, are there some, for example, maybe new right people who want to see a different approach to AI? Does the far left have different opinions? I mean, how does this break down? It sounds like it's pretty bipartisan now.
Yeah, so Josh Hawley is the top Republican. He was the top Republican at this hearing, and his view, he has always been a leader in saying big tech is bad for America and we need to bring the hammer down. So he's very open to these strict regulations. You had John Kennedy was the one who actually offered Sam Altman a job running this prospective new agency to regulate AI, which is not unprecedented. Obama gave the top IRS job to the head of H&R Block so he could write new regulations on that industry. I could give 1,000 examples of this happening. So you have those two Republicans, one getting on the pro-regulation side because he wants to smash big tech, the other getting on the pro-regulation side because he likes big tech and what Sam Altman is saying. And then Democrats always love more regulations that intertwine business and government. So I do think you will see bipartisanship, even if it's mostly Democrats leading the way.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for being here today. You can get more writing from Tim and the rest of the commentary team at washingtonexaminer.com.